Dear students, this is the e-learning platform of Cambridge International School, Dasua. I am Kamaljeet Sharma, PGT Accountancy, teaching accountancy to the students for grade 11th and 12th in Cambridge International School. And this session is for the subject of accountancy for grade 11th commerce. Students, as you know, we have started chapter number 8, that is journal, from your book Double Entry Bookkeeping by T.S. Garewal. In this chapter, you have learned about the formation of journal entries. Today, we will do some example questions from this chapter. I hope this session would help you to understand this chapter. Today, we will continue this chapter, that is chapter number 8, journal. Before starting the journal entries, let us revise the rules to form a journal entry. All the traditional rules and modern rules which we have studied in the chapter number 6. These rules are very much important while formation of journal entries of a business. Students, the accounts are classified on two bases, that is traditional approach and modern approach. We have learned about the traditional approach. Traditional approach is also called English approach, whereas modern approach is also called American approach. In traditional approach, there are broadly two types of account, personal account and impersonal account. Personal accounts are further classified into natural personal accounts, artificial personal accounts, and representative personal accounts. Whereas impersonal accounts are further classified into real accounts and nominal accounts. Personal account, as the name appears, related with person. So natural person's account, for example, Ram account, Sham account, Sita, Geeta, Ina, Meena, these all are natural personal accounts. Artificial personal accounts are those which are non-living beings, not living beings, but we have some names for the establishments. For example, ICICI Bank, Cambridge International School, say Gupta Cloth Emporium, say Pizza Hut, Domino's, all these establishments which carry a name but non-living beings. That's why they are called artificial personal accounts. Representative personal accounts are those which represents a group or an item. For example, outstanding expenses like salaries outstanding, prepaid expenses like prepaid insurance, accrued incomes like accrued commission or accrued interest, unearned incomes like advance commission. Whereas impersonal accounts which do not have any relation with any person, these are classified into real account. Real means actually. So all assets lies under the category of real account. Nominal accounts, as the name appears, nominal, which means it is nothing. But for our convenience, we have given them some names. For example, all the expenses, losses, incomes and gains lies under the category of nominal account. So for the purpose of balancing the accounts or preparation of accounts or for journal entries, all these we have used these traditional approach accounts in the form of personal, real or nominal account. Whereas in the modern approach, we'll be using types of accounts in the name of assets account, liability account, capital account, revenue account or expenses account. We have categorized into these five accounts. Let us revise the traditional approach. The rule for personal account is debit the receiver and credit the giver. The rule for real account is debit what comes in, credit what goes out. And the rule for nominal account is debit all expenses and losses, credit all incomes and gains. Now we will start the modern approach. We have identified or categorized the total accounts in five categories: assets, liabilities, capital, revenue and expenses. First of all, we have to identify the accounts involved in the transaction, whether it is asset or a liability or a capital or a revenue or expense. Let us discuss assets. Assets. If there is any increase in the asset of the organization given in that transaction, the increase in asset will be debited, whereas decrease in the assets will be credited. Now comes the liability. If the value of liabilities increases, it will be credited. And if the value of liabilities decreases, it will be debited. Now comes the capital. If the capital of the proprietor increases in the business, if the balance of the capital increases in the business, it must be credited. And if the capital decreases, it must be debited. Now comes the revenue. Now what is revenue? Revenue is the amount received from the sale of goods and services. So if there is any increase in revenue, it should be credited, or if there is decrease in the revenue, it should be debited. Now comes the expenses. Expenses are the amount spent to generate the revenue. So if there is any increase in the expenses of the organization, these expenses are debited. And if there is any decrease in the expenses, it should be credited. Students, now we will learn the formation of journal entries. There are three simple steps to be followed for recording a journal entry. The step one is simply identify the accounts involved in the transaction. Then the second step is judge the nature of accounts involved, whether it is a personal, a real or a nominal account. The step 3, that is analyze the effect, then apply the rule and form a journal entry. Let us take an example. For example, cash received from Ram rupees 9,000. In this transaction, there are two accounts involved. One is cash, another is Ram. Cash, being an asset, comes under the category of real account. Ram is a natural person, comes under the category of personal account. Now, in the first step, we have identified the accounts involved. That is, cash and Ram are the two accounts involved in the transaction. After that, in the second step, we judge the nature of these accounts involved. The cash is an asset, so it comes under the category of real account, whereas Ram is a natural person, comes under the category of personal account. Now we'll move to step number 3. In the step number 3, we have to analyze the effect. So it is very much clear from the transaction that cash is coming into the business. So cash comes into the business, whereas Ram is the giver. Means Ram gives the money to the business. So after analyzing the effect, we have to apply the rule. So as per traditional approach, the rule for a real account is debit what comes in and credit what goes out. Here cash comes into the business, so cash must be debited. And as per the personal account rule, it is debit the receiver and credit the giver. So here Ram is giver to the business, so Ram must be credited. So we will check the first step and the last step, that is third step. So here cash is debited, Ram is credited. So follow these simple steps to form a journal entry. After discussion of banking transactions in the last session, now we will discuss some more entries. So please pay attention to it. The next entry is regarding the purchase and sale of assets. Fixed assets such as machinery, furniture and fixtures, etc. are purchased to increase the earning capacity of the business. They help to generate the revenue and not for resale like goods. So at the time of purchase or sale of fixed assets, we have to record some journal entries. So when we purchase fixed assets, the entry would be fixed asset account debit with the purchase cost, to cash or bank account if immediate payments are made, to suppliers account if fixed assets were purchased on credit. Now the fixed assets falls under the category of real account, and the rule for real account is debit what comes in and credit what goes out. Here fixed assets comes into the business, so that's why it must be debited. Cash is also a real account. It goes out of the credit if out of the business if immediate cash payment is made, so it must be credited. If we are making the payment through check, it means our bank is paying the payment. That is, our bank is a giver. So as per the rule of personal account, credit the giver. But if the assets were purchased on credit, the supplier is the giver. So as per the personal account, credit the giver. So supplier's account will be credited. I once again repeating the entry. At the time of purchasing the fixed assets account debit to cash account or bank account if immediate payments are made, or to supplier's account if the assets were purchased on credit. At the time of sale of fixed assets, the entry would be cash or bank account debited if immediate payments are received, or the purchaser account debit if assets were sold on credit, or loss on sale of fixed asset would be debited if the book value is more than the sale value. To fixed asset account with the book value appearing in the books of the firm, or to gain on sale of fixed asset if sale value is more than the book value. Either of the two accounts will appear. Either we will record loss on sale of fixed asset or we will record gain on sale of fixed asset. Again, cash is a real account. It comes into the business at the time of sale of assets. It must be debited. And if we receive payment through checks, our bank is the receiver, so debit the receiver. And if goods were sold on credit, so purchaser is the receiver, so debit the receiver. So purchaser's account would be debited. And if there is losses comes under the category of nominal account, so debit all expense and losses. So as per the rule, loss on sale of asset account would be debited. And fixed assets goes out of the business, so real account, fixed assets falls under the category of real account, and the rule for real account is debit what comes in, credit what goes out. So fixed assets going out of the business, it must be credited. And if there is gain on sale of fixed asset, it must be credited. Gain falls under the category of nominal account, and the rule for nominal account is debit all expense and losses and credit all incomes and gain. So gain on sale of fixed asset would be credited here. The next one is expenditure on installation of machinery and on construction of building. Students' expenditure incurred on carriage and installation of machinery etc. or freight or wages paid for the installation etc. are capital expenditures and are debited to machinery account. In other words, expenses incurred on the purchase of an asset except goods, I'm not talking about goods, increases the cost of the asset for the buyer. These are therefore debited to the asset account and not to the expenses account. Similarly, any expenditure incurred for the construction of building, such as purchase of construction materials and payment of wages, are also capital expenditures and debited to building account. Next we come to sundry expenses. Often petty expenses such as refreshment, postage, conveyance, etc. are incurred in a business. These expenses involve small amounts that are not material in nature. Therefore, such expenses are recorded as sundry expenses. The journal entry for it is sundry or miscellaneous expenses account debit to cash account. Being expenses, sundry expenses falls under the category of a nominal account, and the rule for nominal account is debit all expense and losses, credit all incomes and gain. So sundry expenses must be debited, and because cash is a real account and cash goes out of the business, cash must be credited. The next is outstanding expenses. Expenses when due but not paid become our liabilities. So outstanding expenses are the expenses that relate to the current year but have not been paid till the year end. Let us take an example. Wages for the year ended 31st March 2019 are 60,000. Out of this rupees 5,000 for the month of March has been paid in April 2019. Since rupees 5,000 as on 31st March is yet to be paid, it is recorded in the books by passing the journal entry wages account debit to wages outstanding. Wages account being an expenses must be debited as per the rule of nominal account, and outstanding wages falls under the category of representative personal accounts. So it is a personal account and that's why it must be credited. Outstanding wages are liability for the firm. Any increase in liability is always credited as per the modern approach of rules for debit and credit. Next comes prepaid expenses. Expenses paid in advance are called prepaid expenses. Entry for it is prepaid expenses to expenses account. So expenses when paid in advance become our assets. Let us take an example. On 1st July 2018, rupees 12,000 was paid as insurance premium for the shop for the whole year. Final accounts are prepared on 31st March 2019. It means advance payments has been made for the period from 1st April 2019 to 30th June 2019. Since payment relating to the period 1st April 2019 to 30th June 2019 relates to next year, it should be recorded in the books for the year ended 31st March 2019 as prepaid expenses, and the journal entry for it is prepaid insurance premium account debit to insurance account. Prepaid expenses are assets. Any increase in asset is always debited. In this session, we have learned about few more journal entries using the traditional approach to rules of debit and credit. I hope this will help you to understand the concept of the topic more easily. Now students, try to understand the basic concepts of this chapter once again and try to solve some illustrations as well as unsolved questions from your book Double Entry Bookkeeping by T.S. Grewal. You can also try to solve some questions from NCERT, but all the questions to be done in your homework notebook. In the next session, we will continue our next topic. Till then, dear students, to stop the COVID-19, stay home. If you don't think about yourself, think about your loved ones. So stay home please, but study regularly.